Hi everyone. In this video I will show you how I made a procedural candy. I will also tell you a little about wrapper animation. Enjoy watching. First, I created the basic shape of the inner candy using the cube node. Here are his settings. And at the end with the set polygon type node, I smoothed the mesh. Next, I created a new mesh object and connected the basic candy shape with the merge meshes node. Then using the assign selection set node, I created a selection of polygons that are below 0 on the x-axis. To create this selection, I used the selection operator for the polygons, and a condition modifier that will determine the position of the polygons. Thus, polygons below 0 on the x-axis will be selected. Then with the smooth node, I smoothed the shape a bit to get rid of the even rectangle. The following 3 nodes are needed to animate the appearance of an object in the scene. This is the animation I got using these 3 nodes. You can see how one side moves smoothly. This happens at the moment the wrapper collides. I connected 2 radial falloffs to 2 nodes that will control the places of influence of the nodes. Thus, everything that is outside the radial falloff will be deformed by the nodes. At the end, I added an assign selection set node whose name will be the material for the candy. In the material group, you can specify this selection. Now I'll show you how I made a candy wrapper. I used the cube node again to get the basic shape of the wrapper. I generated the dimensions from the base candy shape. To find the wrapper length size, I used the formula for finding the circumference of a circle by its radius. Then using the axis slice node I got a slice in the middle. Next, with the edge bevel node, I expanded this slice and added segments. Next, I used the assign selection set node 6 times to create the necessary selections. With the first node, I selected the extreme vertices on the left and right sides. I used the selection operator and conditional modifier again, but this time for the vertex. The first finds vertices below 0, the other above. Then I kept the selection of the end edges of the edge bevel node. To get this selection I used these 3 selection nodes. Here is the edge selection. Next, I created a selection of the extreme polygons on the right, and the next node, I saved the selection of the extreme polygons on the left. Then I made a selection in which the extreme polygons on the left and right will be selected. And in the 6th selection, I kept the selection of polygons that are below 0 on the y-axis. Next, using the jitter node, I made the distortion of the extreme vertices that I selected earlier. Here is the selection of extreme vertices. Thus, we can randomly change the position of mesh elements. With the next push node, I pushed the edges back a little. This is the selection I created earlier and connected it to the push node. Then using the edge bevel node I protected the edges of the plane so that the corners are sharp. Now if we make our mesh the corners will be sharp. With the subdivide node, I increased the number of polygons. I then used the assign selection set node again to create 2 more selections. With the grow and shrink selection node, we can expand or shrink an existing selection. Then I selected the middle of the wrapper, inverting the selection of the extreme polygons. This is the selection that was made in the previous steps. I inverted it, and squeezed the selection by 2 steps. With the help of the following jitter node, I made something similar to folds. I connected to it the previously made selection of edges. Here is the selection. Using the grow and shrink selection node I expanded this selection. Magnet and transform nodes are only needed for animation. The magnet node can shrink and inflate the mesh. Next, I added 2 bend nodes to bend the top and bottom of the wrap. I set the angle equal to -180 degrees, and in the other +180 degrees. Then using the transform deformer I shrunk the ends of the wrapper. After using 2 twist nodes, I twisted both ends of the wrapper. This is how I animated and implemented the twisting of the ends of the wrapper. I then used the surface constraint node to bind the wrapper mesh to the candy mesh. These are the node settings I used. Then I used the transform deformer again to make the wrapper shape look more like a rectangle. I indicated in it the previously saved selection of polygons in the middle of the wrapper. Next, I used push to move the bottom of the polygons a bit. Now the bottom is a little further than the top. I connected the previously saved selection of the bottom part of the wrapper to the push node. The next node animates the scale of all wrappers. This is how the wrapper appears at the very beginning of the animation. To the transform node and to others that I animated, I connected linear falloff. Thus, by moving the falloff, we adjust the range of influence of certain nodes on the mesh. This is how the wrapper appears in the scene. It's just the scale that grows with the falloff. Almost all animation was done with a single linear falloff. Next, I added the thickness of the wrapper using the thicken node. The next three selections are the front, back and side polygons created by the thicken node. To make the stripe wider at the edges of the wrapper, I used the grow and shrink node again. The next assign selection set node creates a global selection of the entire wrapper mesh. This will be the folder in which all the elements of the wrapper material are stored. In which all wrapper materials will be stored. And with the last set polygon type node, I smooth the mesh. This is the result I got. You can disable the thicken node to make it faster in the viewport. Animating the falloff in a different direction, you can influence how the object appears in the scene. I will turn on the visibility of the candy mesh. Let's take a look at the whole animation. It doesn't look bad. If we turn on the thickness, it will be a bit slower. This is what it looks like on the render. I hope you learned something new for yourself in this video. And thank you for watching this video to the end. I will be glad to your likes and comments.